Hello, I'm Marc Yaxley, guitarist and music teacher. I'd like to thank Kevin Smith again for having me come to the studio here and continue these videos of ideas to help you as a guitarist as well as a musician. What I have noticed in the past few years as a teacher, a lot of guitar players are, I don't want to use the word confined, but they spend a lot of time playing in the sharp keys, meaning D major, G major, C major, etc., and their relative minor keys. What I thought I'd do today for a few minutes is explore the flat keys. Maybe not all of them, but I'll pick one. Today will be D flat major, and I'm trying to seam these videos together where what we've done before can continue on into what we're doing today. For instance, we've talked about chromaticism with warm-ups. And on this subject of warming up, I'm thinking, why can't we warm up our thought process at the same time we're warming up our fingers? I don't think that's impossible to do. So I'm going to be talking about that. When we warm up physically, we can also warm up our minds to what's happening harmonically and rhythmically while we play the guitar. So I'm going to play a D flat major 7 chord, and it's a pretty stock fingering. Again, I'm going to assume that you've had some experience with the guitar, and we'll talk about that later, but I'm just going to let you hear the sound of this D flat major 7 chord. And what I'm going to do is play a scale of D flat. And then I'll play the chord. Now what I'm doing here with this scale, I'm not starting on the root, meaning the D flat. I'm starting on the 3rd of the chord, which is F natural on the 1st fret, low E string. The last note of this particular scale, D flat, ends on the A flat here on the high E string, which is the 5th of the chord of D flat major. I'm going to do it very slow. It's a very easy fingering. There's a saying when we play the guitar, does the fingering lie well on the fingerboard? Meaning, is it comfortable? And you can see that this is all just 4 frets with the 4 fingers. I'm not shifting out of the first 4 frets of the guitar. It lies well on the fingerboard. It's very, very, everything's difficult. I know you agree. Playing a stringed instrument is very difficult, but these type of fingerings are very balanced physically. 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 2, 4. The last 3 notes are 1, 2, 4. D flat major. Now, there are other notes inside the 4 frets here that are not members of D flat. For instance, the B natural here on the A string, 2nd fret, the A natural on the G string on the 2nd fret, and the G natural on the high E string. These are not members of D flat major. You can hear that they're quite an aural distance away from D flat. What we're going to talk about is how to use those notes, B natural, A natural, and G natural. We're going to talk about here how to use those notes to enhance the lines that you're playing in D flat major. Now, when I say the word line, I mean your improvisational melody, a line of notes. Again, I'm going to assume that you've had a few music theory lessons. When I say words like syncopation, line, odd time signatures, these things, I'm going to just assume that you know what I'm talking about. There will be future videos where I'm going to assume that you don't know anything I'm talking about. But right now, I feel if you're looking at this video and you see the theme of these videos, you're pretty into this. And you've probably had some education previous about this subject of jazz theory and scales and arpeggios and things that we're talking about. So again, to come back to D flat major, I'm going to review the scale starting on the 3rd, which is F natural, ending on the 5th, which is A flat. I'm going to include the B natural and the A natural and the G that are not members of D flat in a line of improvisational invention. First the chord. Do that a little slower so you can kind of be the detective here with your ears and hear when I use these notes of B natural, A natural, and G natural that are not in the key. But if we listen close enough, you'll see how these notes enhance the lines that I'm playing in D flat major. Chord first. Now the experimentation. E natural, another note that's not in the key of D flat. I basically talked about 3 a few minutes ago. B natural, A natural, and G natural. But here's an E. These notes that I'm talking about, these 4 notes, B natural, now E natural included, A natural, and G natural, they're very close to a fret where the note is in the key of D flat. So that's really what happens here. It graces the notes that are in the key we're improvising with. In this case, it's D flat major. So what we have to do when we play our scales is realize where these notes are physically inside the scales that we're playing. we do when we realize where these notes are, we try to use them in the lines that we're playing and resolve to the key of D flat so the line makes sense in that key to the listener as well as you as the composer. We're warming up our brain here, realizing where the notes are basically on the first 4 frets. Here's the scale without any of the notes we've been talking about, the out notes, if you will. Just the scale. Now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to add some of these out notes, B natural, E natural, A natural, G natural, in some more experimentation. This time I'm going to play a chord in time. There's that E natural. So what we're trying to do is find out where these notes are: B natural, E natural, A natural, G natural. But now we're going to just try to realize where these notes are all over the fingerboard so that we can take these physics of D flat all over the fingerboard. So it helps to know major scales all over the fingerboard. Because that's basically what we're playing here is a major scale, but we're not starting on the root. We're starting on the 3rd. You can start on the 5th. You can start on the 6th of the scale. And that's just continuing your exploration with major scales starting on different notes than the root. Now, 3 or 4 videos ago, we talked about warming up our hands with chromaticism. Meaning we talked about the scale starting with the first finger sliding to the next fret and playing a 13-note chromatic scale. This is in the key of A. Now what I'm going to do is take that technique and go back to D flat major and think about my out notes as I've been doing before, and this time I'm going to add some chromaticism with the warm-up scale that we've used in the past few videos and see what effects I get. Destination still is D flat major, but I'm trying to use a little chromaticism with a technique of 13 notes. But my destination in my ear is getting back to D flat major. So basically it's just constant experimentation with these 2 devices of playing major scales starting on any note other than the root, and chromaticism, and think time. You want to think time when you're playing. Go back to the chord. Hear the tonality of that chord. Of course, we're not using any open strings unless we choose to with that E natural. So all of this is movable. If I wanted to play an E flat, it's the same physics and the same approach to finding the notes that are not in the new key of E flat and using them to enhance the line that you're playing in that given key. Sometimes I've heard these notes referred to as when you throw a baseball and it curves. The person at the bat can see it coming straight, but it curves and it deceives him. Well, these notes that I'm talking about can deceive the audience, even though they're hearing this dissonance, and it's a mild, sweet dissonance. It's like an aural curve in the tonalities, and I spend a lot of time trying to think how I can throw a curve at myself as well as the audience. When I play in front of people, I just assume that everybody has great pitch. Everyone can hear a melody. Everyone can determine when a rhythm is really spicy. And I just assume that, yes, they're really listening. However, in a restaurant, sometimes they're not. Well, that just means you can practice right in front of them. It's a lot of fun playing in a restaurant. But when I do play, I find that if I just assume that everyone can hear what I'm going for, it helps me and the quality of my playing. And I take my ideas really seriously. Did that work? Did it not work? I'm constantly assessing what does sound good to me, what might be too much dissonance at appropriate times. It's a lot of fun, both physically and mentally and spiritually. This is a lot of fun to do. So just to review, and then we'll go on to something else, take a pause here. What we're talking about is playing in the flat keys. We're talking about finding the notes that are not in that key and using them to enhance or throw a curve orally to the audience. So the lines are interesting to the ear, not just kind of stuck in pentatonic prison, if you will. It gets you out a little bit. It's a great, mild, sweet dissonance that helps these things happen. And it's a great way to warm up your hands as well as your mind at the same time. So we'll pause here and thank you again. And we'll continue with Kevin and playing a piece of music for you. Hello once again. What we're going to do right now is take the approach of playing a major scale starting on the third of the scale on the low E string. It's the same fingering that we did previously in the key of D flat. But what I'm going to do is move it up a whole step to E flat and play the scale from the G natural. For sake of time, I'm realizing where my notes are that are not in the key. In this case, it's D flat. I'll say C sharp actually. C sharp, B natural, and A natural. So these are notes that are not in the key of E flat, but they can grace and enhance the improvisational lines that I'll be using in a tune called Watch What Happens. And Kevin will keep time for me while I explore some of these chromatic ideas and improvisational approaches, knowing where these tension notes are inside the experimentation. First, we'll play the tune chord melody style with Kevin, and then I'll improvise over it, and then I'll play the melody again and end the tune, hopefully with a snappy little outro. Sometimes I don't compose my outros, they just kind of come and we listen to each other and we don't really know what's going to happen. Then other times we do have an idea how to end something, but in this case I have no idea what we're going to do, and that kind of keeps it fun and spontaneous. So here's Watch What Happens in the key of E flat, exploring some of the things we've talked about here today. Thank you so much. We'll continue on after a little break.